Woohoo!
All right. We are live. How They Got Hacked, episode 54.
54. Yeah.
54. Wow.
54.
54 episodes deep. 7 concurrent viewers. We're getting better. Says we're trying to get more consistent. So more people are like, hey, those guys, they talk about stuff on Fridays.
Yeah, we do.
And I think the first thing I'm going to do is say, hey, this is Tom Lawrence and this is...
Xavier D. Johnson.
And on the back wall behind Xavier, it says DEF CON.
Yes.
And that's coming. And I think it's worth mentioning all of you have access to it now.
Yes,
because if you're online, you have access to it. If you're watching us right now, you're online. So
Right. And so for the first time ever, DEF CON is in what's called safe mode. And it's remote. So you get to go to DEF CON for free.
And this is really going to be cool. Oh, low and echo. Let me fix that.
Low and echo.
All right.
Man, it's a
I'll fix the low and echo.
Dude, should I put on my my cans?
No, you're good. I just had to turn the volume up. I got to remember to do that. I usually wait till people remind me.
There you go. Yeah. It's a ritual.
It's a ritual. That's how I know people are paying attention.
Yep,
they're actually listening to us.
Yeah.
So that'll fix the echo. But anyways, with DEF CON being online, I think the exciting thing about that is just that it's so accessible to everybody now. So more people can attend, more people can get it like a direct taste of DEF CON, watch some of the talk, watch all the talks, levels of involvement and things like that. So that's gonna be pretty cool.
Yes, and they figured out a way to put the villages online. So
yes,
this is super exciting. I've seen some good talks from the car hacking village. And I could imagine that other villages have talks that'll be just as good. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, that's it's going to be interesting for sure. I noticed some of them, and each one. Does this go for all the villages? Each one has their own dedicated site.
Usually they have their so they have different sites, but this year the way it'll work is DEF CON will be on Discord, and each village will have their own set of rooms, text rooms and voice chat rooms in Discord. So
very cool.
Puppy's bothering me about playing. It's play o'clock if you didn't know.
Someone said in the chat, will it be live only or recorded sessions? I'm assuming recorded sessions.
It'll be live. So we're pre-recording them, but we're going to be playing them live. So
yeah.
I don't know what every village is doing, but I know that's what the car hacking village is doing. So it'll be live sessions. It'll be you have a place and time. You got to show up.
Yeah. Then probably, and DEF CON posts a lot of their talks anyways sometime after the event. They get posted online, so you can always watch the talks and things like that online.
The interesting thing is that villages usually never go online. Usually villages are in person only, and there's a couple of tracks at DEF CON that are in person only, like Sky Talks. I don't know that they're doing Sky Talks this year at all. Because just the nature of it is typically like the hard-hitting stuff. I'll put to you like this. Brian Krebs got in trouble for bringing in a spy device to record at a Sky Talk and got banned from Sky Talks altogether. And that's how good the research is that goes into Sky Talks. There's only like 1 or 2 at the con entirely, but the rest of the tracks typically make it online by November, by Thanksgiving. And the villages, the talks that happen at the villages are typically place and time. Like you can't get them anywhere else. And so it's really interesting that this year these village talks will be public. And I mean avionics, I mean vehicle hacking, I mean social engineering, red team, blue team.
Aerospacevillage.com or something. I seen that going out on Twitter. So I noticed some of them that got tweeted out had dedicated sites.
Yep.
So
yeah, go check them out. If you want to check out what I've been working on, go to carhackingvillage.com.
Yep.
Shameless
and
plug.
We should probably jump into the exciting breaking news only an hour ago, I think, or maybe 2 hours ago. Today, fresh off the, it's not the press anymore.
No, it's the news wire now.
Yeah. Breaking news. The Twitter hack wasn't as exciting as everyone thought it was. It was a lot of noise and a pinned credentials.
Yeah, it seems like it was pretty boring actually. If we can be honest, yeah. I mean, hey, Florida teen hacks the Twitter account of prominent politicians, celebrities, and technology moguls, all for a measly Bitcoin scam. So it looks like this kid's 17 years old, still a teenager. He's got 30 felonies that he's up against, which is crazy, right? I mean, technically he hacked Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, you know, the big guys out there. Um, it's pretty interesting. So the way that this went down, I guess they're calling it spear phishing, but in my
Yep.
mind, I wouldn't call this spear phishing. I would call this more of a coordinated yet targeted attack, right? This is
Well, they did spearfish a specific Twitter employee. The pivot, though, was once they got in there, they're like, oh, look, the Slack channel has the God mode credentials pinned in Slack.
right.
So,
So they weren't necessarily going to go and look for. They didn't know what they would find. They were
no.
just on exploration. They were just exploring.
Yep.
But yeah, it looks like, of course, we're only going to get half the story because this is still under investigation. And interestingly enough, since it's under investigation, a lot of this information gets made public by the
Yep.
United States DOJ. So the Department of Justice has an official complaint that they have actually put out, and they have charged 3 individuals with this hacking. So looks like people all the way from Orlando, San Francisco, Washington D.C., all the great places came together and slammed the hammer on some folks down in Orlando. One guy out in the UK, and the third defendant is a juvenile, which we already know is 17. So uh, yeah, very very interesting. Uh,
Click on that YouTube link real quick. You're just going to laugh when you see it.
YouTube link.
Up a little bit. I didn't realize the Department of Justice did this. You don't have to play this audio. It doesn't. But yeah, this is. It doesn't have any views. He just basically wanted to give a stern talking to make the announcement. Something about it made me giggle a little bit. I don't know.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he just. I thought it was a little strange. I'd never seen him do this before.
This is
Yeah, it's just him talking. All he does is he reads, probably off a teleprompter, exactly what's on that page.
what in the world?
I
What is this?
know.
Tom,
Okay,
we're
you
gonna have
think
to
it's...
reach out to them and teach them how to make content.
Yeah, look at this, 31 views at justice.gov. I mean...
Oh man, I never knew. I never knew. I
Me
wasn't
either.
aware.
I did the same thing. I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, I gotta. Now I'm just gonna OD on this and just like watch it all. Like now I
Yeah.
just gotta know what is the propaganda that I must know about. I'm so happy that you showed me this.
Yeah,
Um,
it made me chuckle for sure.
that is really interesting. The Verge take on it. The crazy thing about this specific article is it says, where's it at?
Down a little further, there's a license in there. Yeah, right here. Use right there in the
There it
middle.
is.
According to federal agents, Shepard had used a personal driver's license to verify himself with Binance and Coinbase cryptocurrency exchanges. They didn't use a coin tumbler. They
And this was something that we didn't know 100% before, and not even from the other reporting. This is something that kind of just slipped out that I didn't. I saw this and I went, well, really, Tom said it, and I go, where do you see that at? It's like the third one. I'm like, no way they had an Opsec fail that hard. Yep. According to federal agents, these dudes failed hard at operational security, used their personal driver's license to verify themselves with Binance and Coinbase. They did not use coin tumblers. Uh, yeah, that is super bad. I mean, it's already bad that they were, doing this as crime, and cybercrime is never good. But when you look at, uh, bad cybercrime, like people who do cybercrime ineffectively, it's just extra terrible. Like it's a waste of time. Like either be good at it or don't do it. And now I mean, they're facing 30 plus uh, charges, and some of these charges, I mean, 1 to 20 years.
Oh yeah.
Money laundering is a big deal. They don't
You
fuck
scroll
around with
down a
it.
little bit. They did a summary of the indictments here in the Verge article. They just pulled it from, and they have links to in the Verge article for the actual indictments, copies of the indictments and things like that. But it's a mess. It's a shit show.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
pretty,
leaving your creds pinned in Slack is the modern day equivalent of writing it on a Post-it note. Which it's hard
right.
to say modern day equivalent because they're still on Post-it notes somewhere. But in this
Certainly.
case, it would have been safer on a Post-it note.
So it's crazy because like if you were just being a hacker, you would face 5 years. You probably could fight 2 or 3 outside and get like a year or two of probation, do 10 months inside of a state jail and go home, right? But the moment that you go and touch money, you get charged the same fine, but you're doing 4 times the amount of time, right? And
Yep.
this is, I always tell people, if you want to be a hacker, don't touch kids, don't touch women, don't touch money. If you get caught, you got 5 years that you're going to probably be dealing with. 5 to 7 years is the average. But the moment that you go touching on this money, you're looking at large football numbers, basketball numbers. No one
Yep.
wants
20 years and 20 years.
pretty bad. And of
Yeah.
course, a special agent with the IRS.
Dude, you know who took down Capone? The
Oh,
IRS.
IRS. Yeah. Pay your taxes, boys and girls.
Yep.
Yeah. Really, really interesting. I mean, this was something that with the moment that you get into cyber crimes and you get into money and you're dealing with Bitcoin's one big ass ledger. It's nothing for them to go and actually look at that ledger and use the powers of investigation to actually subpoena the records of who may be the owner of this account. Things like IP addresses, things like driver's license that you signed up with. Because if I'm an IRS cyber crimes investigator, the first thing I want to do is go look at who signed up for the account. Oh, look, they have the driver's license. Maybe I should just go knock on their door, or better yet, maybe I'll just surveil them more, right? And I'll use my other, global investigator skills to be able to go and find more information. Maybe I'm looking at the Discord. Maybe I'm looking at the Slacks, and oh yeah, these are the people that did it, and here are the other people that were involved as well. So I mean, we're talking about people who were a part of the Silk Road Task Force. Like, you're not going to win. You're dealing with
No.
people who are in Tokyo at Interpol and Europol. Like, you're not going to win against these people. Do not do cybercrime. Anyway,
It is
it's
a
funny
mess.
that they have
They're
to
screwed.
define what a server and a domain name is.
Yeah.
DNS, it's always the problem.
DNS is the problem. Part of it too is I think a lot of people thought this was so much more sophisticated than it was. And as you know, working cybersecurity, most of the time it's embarrassing, not sophisticated attacks. It's
How simple it is.
yeah. Look at Equifax. The calamity of errors that led to Equifax was a calamity of errors. It was sophisticated. Someone exploited struts and pivoted around their network when they exploited an unpatched Apache struts server, but that was it. It was not for the people think that there's an equal level of sophistication at the front end that causes the amount of chaos at the back end, and that just doesn't hold up in most of the cybersecurity stuff. 17-year-old kid sends a spear phishing email, finds credentials inside of a Slack channel by a Twitter employee that everyone has access to, and then this occurs. It's all minor, small stuff. So,
Oh man, that's pretty crazy. A bunch of kids will be going to jail for
yep.
quite the time.
What are you gonna do?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. In that case, we were waiting to hear more information. We just had to know how it works, and nice
And
and
it's
boring.
disappointing.
Yeah,
I mean, what could Twitter have done better? Well, they could have been more compartmentalized. They could have that God mode should have required high level of human interaction, so more than one person. Microsoft does this internally. So if you want to make a global structure change to Azure, it's a tokenization system. You say what you want to change. They create a token that only allows you for a limited amount of time to only implement that change that you claim to make and give you a scope of access and very focused and limited to that. And it has to be a human intervention that allows it. So there's ways you can mitigate this from a development standpoint. That we know developers need access to things, but not everybody needs access all the time.
Right.
It's, principles of least privilege were not practiced. They would have just done that, and of course, leaving your passwords in any type of, like a Slack channel, just
Pretty bad.
Yeah, that's bad.
I mean, when you think about it, right? Like, think about what it takes to be able to actually, read the read the scrolls that come into, like, the communications that come into, nuclear submarines, right? Like, there's a person that gets a piece of paper, and then they read off exactly what that piece of paper says, and then another person gets a second version of that piece of paper and confirms that that's what that piece of paper says, and then the commanding officer says, I acknowledge that both of these commands are real, and I'm going to then act on this. And this is the reason why you don't have, like, nuclear missiles flying left and right from mistakes, because the submarines have basically 3 factors of authentication before it ever, 2 keys get stuck in and both turned, and then a button gets pressed, right?
Yep.
Like, there's so many different layers before you actually detonate and do something that isn't,
Yeah, and the military does that. It's even if you're in earshot, there's a person receiving the orders, handing the orders back. The orders as handed to me by the commanding officer. Those same principles apply on the computer scale the same. So there's ways this can be mitigated. That's the big thing that's important. Now, what is really clever is, did you look at this Doki infecting Dockers? Or is it called Doki?
Yes. This is a very interesting topic right now, because a lot of people always think, oh, well, I've Dockerized my environment, so I don't have the traditional risk that everyone else has, because I'm not really a hosting. I'm using a host that runs multiple Docker servers. Well, I've been telling folks that even if you're separating your Docker containers from the actual host, right, that's fine, but you still have to secure your Docker environment and secure your host. It's still, you're still responsible for, your Docker environments at both
And
levels.
you can't be publicly exposing your Docker APIs. I mean, that's greatly convenient to expose the Docker management to the web, because I can just get to it, but you shouldn't expose it. You should, VPN that, private IP that section of it. And if I'm not mistaken, that's their method of access. So it's publicly open Docker API access.
Yep. Anybody who has Docker API access is high risk to be hacked within the span of just a few hours, right? And so they call it Doki, which I think is so cool. I like the name of the malware, Doki.
Yeah.
They're, the ngrok mining botnet, which, I mean, you could imagine what it does. It goes around and it mines different coins.
Now, look at it's been up on VirusTotal ever since January of this year. So it's really been good at evading detection or even analysis.
Right. And this is when it was first analyzed, right? So that means that somebody grabbed it and tossed it up. And, now, of course, it's called Doki. But when it first was analyzed, potentially it was just undetected. And look at how much is still undetected. Clam AV is very popular. F-Secure, very popular.
Viper, Symantec.
Acronis.
Sentinel-1 still doesn't detect it. Wow.
Oh, wait, where do you see that? Where do you see Sentinel-1 at?
Sentinel-1 right in the middle. Center. Up. See? Yep. Down 2 more. Sentinel-1. Undetected.
Wow. Still, huh?
Yeah.
Or at this time, maybe. I don't know.
Well, that's still interesting at this time, because VirusTotal is constantly being updated and rerun all the time.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
It's also it is Linux, so some of the antiviruses are slower on the uptick of detecting any type of Linux malware.
I would expect Clam AV would be on top of it, because they're Linux, like.
Yeah.
That's interesting. But yeah, they're claiming that this is one of the longest ongoing attacks, and it comes down to misconfigurations of the Docker Hub API. It looks like containers are able to be created using ngrok inside of some temp directory, and then payloads are then executed, put into cron tabs, and that's the way that the host is actually able to. I mean, the Docker the host is actually able to become infected by rogue Docker containers, basically. So, um, yeah, it's pretty interesting. Now, the thing is I don't know exactly what the use for the command and control is. It looks like beyond just mining Bitcoin, this is just what it's being used for right now. But I could imagine that
Well,
that mode of operation will change the same way that most good malware operators do.
well, that's what's interesting. You scroll up by a little bit. I think they had a reference to it in there. They're using dynamic DNS, and by doing that, they're using a essentially like a blockchain generated updated list and tying them there to dying DNS. So it's really hard to block because it's a domain generation algorithm based on the Dogecoin cryptocurrency blockchain in order to find the domain of its C2 in real time. So because you can't predict the next blockchain, as that comes out, it looks for it, and that's where the next command and control comes from. So it's always being updated where the CNC servers are, which is really interesting. That's how they evaded detection for so long.
Potentially still evading detection.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a pretty in depth.
These are the ones that are scary. This was not, well, maybe he could be the person could be a 17-year-old kid doing this, but
Right.
Either way, that's a very clever attack. Even though, yes, it does require a publicly exposed Docker, the other side of it is this is still clever. This is still to evade detection on these systems for 6 months and be is prolific. I mean, once we discovered it, everyone's starting to find it everywhere. You're like, oh, this is so interesting for sure.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Well,
I mean,
if you've ever used ngrok is a really cool tool that allows you. Have you ever used ngrok before, Tom?
I haven't used it. No.
It basically allows you to be able to punch holes in the firewalls the same way that zero tier kind of does. So
Okay.
it allows you to be able to say, hey, I want to host a bind, or I want to actually expose a port onto a firewall that I don't necessarily have access to. It'll connect that client to a ngrok.io domain name, and then give it some port and some random host name, and then you can use that to be able to catch your reverse shells inside of a natted environment, right? So without having to open up your firewalls, you can use ngrok as a client, and then it'll take a hop over your firewall through the internet over egress, where it's basically like a reverse tunnel, right?
Right.
It's interesting. So I love to see people use things creatively. I used ngrok late last year on an engagement, just because sometimes you gotta make your way out of environments without asking permission. So
Somebody in the chat said they've used ngrok for Pokemon Go maps.
here you go. Here you go. What's going on, Avenged by Cherry? How's it going? Who else we got in here? Where's the third guy? Huh, JP Test. I don't know. Where's the third guy? I'm crackling
Somewhere.
from time to time. Oh no, I'm sorry.
Ugh.
Who knows what that is? Anywho, did you hear about
Anyway.
this Zoom bombing thing?
Oh, you would think you'd be able to rate limit. I mean,
Oh my
rate
God.
limiting. We've
Like,
heard of this before, right? Everyone knows what
rate
rate limiting is.
APIs is kind of like API development 101. So it's interesting that all of a sudden we got bugs inside of one of the most popular platforms to date, with their already short 6-digit PIN for private meeting passwords. And it looks like, let's be clear, Zoom started requiring a password for meetings back in April so that people could stop Zoom bombing. And now people decided, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to send a bunch of HTTP requests to zoom.us/j, and I'm going to come up with a meeting ID. And just there you go, 1 million combinations of the number and of the pin, and you'll be able to find your way in to that Zoom room, right? So
Yeah. So with improved threading and distribution across 4 or 5 cloud servers, you could check the entire password space with just a few minutes.
Yep. Wow, that's interesting. The fact that cloud is being leveraged for multi-threading, distributed loading, and that type of stuff is always fun, but especially when you use it for like security, it's like, I want to take this word list and chunk it out over 5 servers, and then and it'll be done in 5 times faster.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's there was a cross-site reference for the HTTP header sent during this step, but if you omitted it, then still seems to work just fine. So the failure
ask, well, what can you even do with cross-site request forgery? This is what you can do. You can brute force your way into meetings that are password protected, right? Like anytime that I can make an action off of your website, and potentially the action that I'm making is to circumvent your security, that's where CSRF really, where the rubber hits the road.
Yeah. So Zoom, and I mean, come on, our favorite tool, Keybase, got sacrificed for this company, and we're still seeing this.
God damn it.
I mean, that sacrifice happened over a month ago, and they still have these problems in it.
I loved Keybase. They gave me like 250 gigs of free network attached storage. It was all encrypted. Oh man, they ruined it. I really want somebody to come and buy it. I thought that I was going to stop using GitHub when Microsoft bought it, and they haven't ruined it yet.
No, they've actually made it better.
Yeah,
they're they acquired that analysis tool. I can't remember the name of the company. They acquired another company that writes a tool, and now they're, without charging people, scanning all the GitHub and looking for common programming mistakes and alerting people of them.
Yes.
So
at my talk earlier this year, was it February 29th, hacking with the homies, I did a talk on security scanning in the CI/CD environment, and GitHub was straight up squashing my demo because it was all like, yeah, by the way, you got a vulnerability here. And I'm like, oh, well, this just updated. So I didn't know that it was going to do my entire demo right here on the platform. I didn't even have to take my code elsewhere to scan it because GitHub was just like, yo, this is bad.
Yeah. Now you got to encrypt your stuff so GitHub can't scan it, and then it creates a different challenge. But yeah.
Exactly. Did we talk about this other Zoom issue?
No, I don't think so.
Fraudsters mimicking organizations by using, I guess, what looks like branded Zoom URLs.
Oh, nice. URLs. So someone can use my Zoom URL? That's nice of them.
It looks like they could do something with it here. So, yeah, it looks like somebody can make a vanity Zoom URL with your...
That's awful nice of them to do. I pay for this feature, man.
Oh man, that's interesting.
I have a paid business account.
So attack via direct link, so the attacker can change the invitation URL to include a registered subdomain of their choice, and then the user receiving the link may fall under the attacker's trap, thinking that the invitation was genuine. So it's social bugs, but still, I mean, you got to get ahead of those types of things because people will use them, and then there will be what they call watering hole attacks. You don't want that kind of shit happening. You don't want your platform to be the reason why watering hole attacks are prevailing in organizations, especially paid tools.
You don't want to do dumb things and end up like Twitter.
No.
Pin Slack credentials and all that fun stuff. Getting from 5 to 0 VPN security flaws.
It's better than using IT glue, huh?
We just pin all the credentials on walls and shit.
Done. I learned this from my last org. We were at MSP. Don't worry.
Don't worry at all. It was good, man. We had a notebook.
Yeah, we had thousands of customers inside of our three subject divided notebooks.
I think the worst one was I did talk to a person. He left an MSP. He says, I didn't want to be there when it finally hit the fan, but they stored everything in a series of shared Outlook notes. That's where all the passwords were. For everything. Yeah.
As if Bitwarden is just that hard to run.
I like Bitwarden. That's where we store things behind a VPN, and I love Bitwarden.
back it up, take a snapshot of it. Shit's good. Fucking migrate it to another host offsite just in case shit's the fan. You
Yep.
know, yeah. It things can be made in a way in which it's nice. You don't
Yeah.
have to write it down at all. You don't even have to know the password. Like the
No.
Russians are pulling your fingernails off, like, give me the password. You're like, I don't know it. The internet is down. Like, I need my
I can't do anything without the internet. I don't know any of my passwords.
I mean, either. I know one, the one that lets me in the last match.
Yeah, that I know one password.
That
That's
shit
it.
is changing, right? It changes. It's not even like a static password. It's something that I gotta continue to remember. Anyway, have you ever heard of Claroty Research Team?
Not before this article.
Not before this article had I ever heard of them either. And this is a really good way to get your name in the game, right? And so, as a service provider, this is one of the things that I am always working to figure out is how do I come up with research or a piece of content that's hard hitting that will make my name in the space. And I'm sure Clarity is probably a bigger company. Don't get me wrong, but when you do great research like this,
Yeah.
remote code execution affecting VPNs for operational technology networks, things like ICS, the things that control the PLCs for input and output. This is the stuff that makes beer. This is the stuff that makes bread. This is the stuff that mechanically separates the chicken McNuggets, right? Like, do you want your coffee on time? Because this is how it gets roasted. So when we can find RCE on VPNs that are aimed at the ICS industry, we stop potentially famine because maybe one day somebody comes along and breaks all of these at the same time and ruins the food supply, right? So,
Well,
um,
and it goes a step further. So we've dealt with securing clients and their industrial control systems. HVAC system for, let's say, like a 10-story plus building, they're more than just temperature controls. They actually have to balance how much fresh air they bring in to circulate, because you got to remember those commercial buildings don't open. So they actually have to keep a level of oxygen and carbon dioxide being exchanged from outside air, bringing it in. And this is all controlled through Honeywell being one of the big industrial control vendors. But one of the clients we had taken on, we had to make all that private because they had it all public facing. And
yeah,
man, this stuff uses like Internet Explorer interfaces,
yeah.
requires ActiveX controls. You can tell how poorly written it is and
Stuff's
how
written in
long ago it was
tables.
written.
It's
So
all
I'm sure it
table,
wouldn't hold up to any scrutiny. And that's kind of what Clarity did here, was these industrial control systems don't hold up to scrutiny, essentially.
right? Yeah, like when you're up against a web page that was developed with tables and inline CSS, it's just like, all right, yeah, this is from 2004. Like,
Yep.
it's over. So, but yeah, this kind of gives you an understanding of what the typical diagram for industrial controls looks like, right? So, I mean, it starts out on the edge, the DMZ, right? So, email servers and web servers, they're firewalled off, right, from the enterprise level, which is where you got all of your desktops and your domain controllers and your servers, etc. But then that's segmented and firewalled off from what they call their plant DMZ, which is remote access for things inside the plant. Data that's being probably sucked off and put off somewhere, patch services, etc. And then that's firewalled off from a what they call the control center, which is the processing lane. Now, this is where it gets a little bit different. Sometimes people will smush level 4 all the way down to level 3 together. And that's the reason why you see a lot of that east-west movement after you get a compromise of a web server, because then there'll be a route directly into like a domain controller, which will let you jump directly into a database server or engineer's workstation, which is where you actually see these HMIs, right? These HMIs are deployed out all over the place. These are the things that actually communicate. These are like the head units. These are the things that actually communicate with the independent controllers that actually do the jobs, right? So an independent controller may be over, monitoring and managing the temperature for an oven, right? Maybe it's a powder coating factory, right? And over at another HMI, you'll have other controllers that are maybe connected to the downdraft system, like Tom was saying, for the fresh air, right? So you'll have a multitude of these HMIs that are on a network that's separated from another network that has all of these other controllers, right? And then when you smush level 4 and level 3 together, You're talking about being one hop away from the thing that controls the bread, because we already know that from level 2 to level 0 is basically it's might as well be flat. The only separation is probably logically, probably wouldn't, wouldn't be too much more of a separation there. So, when you talk about doing research in this area, for one, you got to look at how complex this environment is to even replicate, to make a lab of. You're talking about deep domain expertise to even understand and know SCADA control, ICS, etc. When I worked at GE, we got to play with some of this stuff, and it was really intimidating actually when you see it in practice, because there's miles of networking. I mean, there's 5 Tom Lawrences sitting behind the desk figuring out how to route factories together all over the world, and like make it so that just in time actually works, and that the entire windmill blade that's coming off the factory has a truck that's backing up to grab it to take it off to the next place to get the hub put onto it, right? Like, and the hub production has to start at a very moment so that it's produced and tested at a point so that it can go into the actual blade, because they're on those kind of a deadline. So when someone comes through and ruins your environment, how do you make your deadlines? Those deadlines could mean the difference between fresh water for troops. I mean, General Electric works on some interesting stuff, right? Or
Yeah.
power for a village, right?
And they dove into this in episode 68 of Dark Knight Diaries, that episode called Triton, where there was an attack on industrial control systems at a chemical factory. And someone was hacked in there and changed the safety parameters. So people could have, it never did occur, but that hack led to people could have died because they did disable the safety systems, but they never did whatever the next step would have been. No one really knows. That's been in a long time investigation of why they did it, but the fact that they got into it and were able to say that they could disable safeties, if there would have been a chemical accident or a triggered chemical accident, they disable the safety system that stops it from happening.
That would have been nuts. For one, that's scary type shit, man. And that's the reason why my hat goes off to this company, because you're venturing off into things that are making the difference, right?
Yeah.
Like this is important work. Somebody's got to do it, and it's hard. It's hard work, and it's daunting.
And physically between me and Xavier, where I'm at and Xavier's at, is a very large gas production plant. So if someone were to compromise those systems there, we would both hear it.
Oh yeah, and feel it.
Yeah. That'd shake the ground that we sit on. So
yeah, we're probably about equal distance away from that plant, and it would rattle the windows pretty good if it went off.
Yeah. So and that's with with everything being online for convenience. It's cool to see this company diving into this research, like you said, because these are not easy environments to stand up, and some of these companies, sometimes through overconfidence, I don't know where they're at really on the amount of testing they do.
That's where we're at right now. There's not a whole lot of testing for this.
They don't think themselves as tech companies. They're like, well, we just bought these Honeywell controllers or whatever brand, and they don't think about it at the same level because they've not had an incident in their industry big enough to make them think about it.
Stuxnet 2 should really wake people up. Stuxnet 2 is a 2020 thing, and it should really open people's eyes to the dangers of having these types of networks exposed. I mean, I'm an American and I love America, so I think that, dirty uranium or, enrichment of nuclear materials that are unsanctioned is bad. So I think Stuxnet 2 is warranted, right? But like, we have a lot of those same type of infrastructures that those plants use live on the internet right now. I can go to Showdown and just punch in ICS and it'll pop up.
Right? Yeah, there's a lot of things exposed.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Showdown searches for ICS systems are scary times.
Yes, it is. Actually, I'm about to log in and just punch it in just to get the effect. All right, so this is how big of a deal it is, right? When I go here, what's the first thing that's in feature categories? Industrial control systems. It even lets you know exactly, like there's a whole subpage for it, right? And General Electric, the GSRTP protocol.
Let's start there.
For the transfer of data for PLCs. and plenty stuff out there. I mean, we're only talking about 77, but
It
still,
and that's the thing. It doesn't take a lot because it's
right.
not like it only takes one large industrial plant to cause mass chaos. So it's not like you need a quantity of these things because these things are not in a lot of places. They're in enough places.
Exactly. And I mean, when you're running stuff like OpenSSH and Drop Bear SSH, you're asking for it. You know,
Yep.
these systems are running things that, I mean, these are probably newer systems, but you just got to be really careful. You got to be really, really, really careful. Um, but anyway, they this company Claroty did some remote code execution on access servers for VPNs, and it's a company named Sakoma, I believe is how you say it. They make a product called Gate Manager, which is a well-known ICS remote access server, and it's a cloud-based SaaS solution, right? So it looks like you use this gate manager to be able to do machine-to-machine communications through firewalls, right? And potentially over even cellular networks, from what I'm seeing right here, right? So this is basically what I told you when I say people end up smushing down level 4 and level 3 all the way down. That's kind of what you see right here with regard to a gate manager, smushing it directly down so that it can get to this HMI, which actually controls the input and output, right? So, um, again, segmentation and defense in depth, this is kind of anti that. And it looks like potentially, having multiple security flaws, including a remote code execution flaw, allows for you to be able to route through this VPN and even decrypt all the traffic that passes through the VPN, which means that you'll get creds, you'll get just about everything that you want. You'll be able to see everything that's happening in that environment, and it looks like just as simple as a bad HTTP request provided could be the thing that actually gives you the remote control of this gate manager. So um, it looks like there's
It's
a demo here.
yeah.
Something as simple as a couple of clicks. Let's see.
And it's almost the telltale thing for me sometimes when I see something that looks like that. Like it's like kind of like you said, it's not well. It doesn't look modern UI, which tells me it probably. I mean, modern UI doesn't mean it's automatically secure, but it gives you an idea of maybe when it was built.
Right.
And when you start seeing that, you're like, okay, built really basic. It's probably subjected to a lot of different security flaws. It's built on an old framework, the way they did it. So
Yeah, and it looks like, I mean, you just make a couple of requests and bam, it just it just goes crazy. So that is super interesting. And it looks like they also found a buffer overflow, um, and the actual client had some a remote code execution. So I mean, we're talking about ransomware, we're talking about phishing campaigns. Uh, yeah, great work from Clarity.
solid
That's
work.
some hard work right there. Even just getting that infrastructure set up, just knowing that this exists, and it looks like this will actually be given. Um, this talk actually will be given at DEF CON 28.
Yep.
So uh, here at the ICS Village, um, you can you can see his talk. Um, so I'm saying, which one is it? I wonder. I can't
ICS
see.
Village kickoff. So it's going to be
I'm wondering which one is going to be his Confessions of an Off. I don't know. Anyway,
watch them
this
all.
this is just one day's worth of content. There should be more. Uh, but anywho,
Good solid piece of work there. Solid
that
piece
may
of
actually
security
be from
research.
last year. I don't know. Are we on DEF CON 29? I think we're on DEF CON 29.
Yeah, because this is DEF CON 2020 is what we're talking about.
Nope, it's
But
DEFCON 28.
we'll look further
Anywho,
talk.
yeah,
Anyhow,
check it out.
very good, solid work.
Yeah, 430.
Mock folders. Let's talk about that. It's the last story we got here, but I thought it caught my eye.
So I have been talking about bypassing user access control using LNKs. Let me see. Um, I can't find the fucking thing that I was looking at, but nevertheless, you can you can get to like admin mode without UAC prompts in Windows 10 as of like February 2020, right? So if you haven't gone to try and bypass UAC, actually it's gotten so crazy that UAC has a second factor now. Have you noticed that? It's called Smart Screen.
Yeah.
And now people are trying to beat Smart Screen, which is like, are you sure you want this to run? It's like, I
Yes.
know you clicked yes to be your administrator, but are you really sure you want us to run? But anyway, bypassing Windows 10 UAC using mock folders.
I
What
hadn't heard about this before, and so that's what caught my eye on here. And essentially, Windows, it's a way it looks at the folders and having a space after it. So C:/Windows and C:/Windows with a blank space after. Turns out some programs think it's the same thing.
Sorry, I was reading the comments.
Yeah, no, it's really kind of interesting. So it's in the UAC framework, and this feature allows trusted system DLLs located under CWSM32 to auto-elevate to higher privileges. But you can then put your own in there by making mock directories for it.
So what about the contents of System 32? Does it automatically run at a higher privilege because it's inside of this folder that has a space
I
at the end?
believe so, because of the way you set the permissions. So you can then poison it by having your own things in there.
So you can actually make a mock directory of something that's already known to be legitimate and trusted.
Right.
So the way that their user access control works is if it's running from /system32, then it's known good.
Right. It's
So if
already,
you can add a space to the end of system32, then
or
you can
this
actually
one,
make
this space is Windows/space system32.
right there.
Yep.
I
And
see.
then UAC won't prompt you and run things inside there because it falls within the trusted space. So it kind of sounds like just a parsing error where it can parse it but doesn't understand there's an extra space. It actually seems to eliminate the space. So yeah, this is just a strangely clever.
Yeah, this is a very interesting discovery.
Security beaten by a spacebar.
Yeah, a fat finger is what did it.
That's what Avenged by Cherry said. Security beaten by a spacebar. You are not wrong.
Yeah, yeah, it's 2020, man.
Yep. Now here's what's crazy is this probably is not a new problem. This is probably was all the way back to the older versions of UAC, goes back all the way to the UAC, probably handled in Vista, undoubtedly how Windows 7. There's probably a long chain of problems that you could solve
Right.
for access. So, and because people are slow to patch, yeah.
Wow. I wonder if this is in Windows 7, Windows 8.
Probably.
Yeah, this probably is in XP.
Well, XP didn't have the UAC, so
I was gonna say I don't even think XP had UAC. It was pre-UAC days. I don't think 7 had UAC either.
I thought there was. Maybe you're right. That does start Windows 8 with the UAC.
I think it starts with 8.
That starts with 8. I quit using Windows after XP, so I'm a little.
I was a 7 Ultimate fiend. I loved 7, and then once it got to Vista, I was like,
yeah. I did use some Windows 7 when I was still doing photography for my photography work, but
Win 7 was nice. I used to run a Dell XPS M1530. I think that's what I used to run. It's around here somewhere. Got ran over. I ran it over by mistake. Yeah, crazy. Anywho,
Ah, fun stuff.
A
Scroll
good
down. I
DLL.
can't remember if they patched when this patched or not. I think they're releasing this because it's patched.
Yeah.
But it's yep. It's a mess.
Wow. So all you got to do is just have all of the legitimate executables and a fake DLL that has one line added to it, and it'll trust it and just run it. That's fucking nuts. That is so sketch. Wow, that
Yep.
is
I
so
love,
interesting.
everyone's got a nice proof of concept demo on YouTube.
Yeah, that's the new norm now, right?
Yeah. UAC on.
Yep, letting you know he's on a patched version of Windows.
New item. Because you can't right click and create folder with a space in there. You need to use it in PowerShell because you have to
Got it.
escape out the space to get it in there. Actually, no, you didn't even escape it out. Wow, it just creates it.
Nope, he just created it using double quotes.
Wow. I didn't double quotes. I thought you'd have to like escape it out like you do in Linux for a special character.
Wow. Yeah, it's really interesting. He's got his poison DLLs right there, which, yeah, wow.
Wow.
He's
Straight up impressive.
got an administrator EXE. That's nuts. And every single time he opens up any of those EXEs, that DLL runs because he's added that line in there. So that means that he's going to pop a administrator. And I mean, if you can get an administrative EXE, then basically every time you open this, you can do a no window reverse shell from administrator, which means you could have a person just going about their day, clicking on stuff, opening up Word, opening up this, opening up that, and infecting their machine up to 1,000, hundreds of thousands of times, allowing you to persist to no end. Very interesting. You can see
Yeah.
some of the stuff I watch.
Yeah.
Riding the Mike Finnegan's 11.7 liter twin turbo big block jet boat. That's how I'm gonna spend my money. Jet boats and airplanes. Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. I'm all for it. My YouTube
Right?
looks the same.
Oh man. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Nuts. Fucking scary time. And look, we didn't even give you any crazy ransomware.
We skipped it. It's just not what we're talking about today. There's enough of it out there. Type in ransomware in the news and enjoy. Like there's
It's there. You'll find it. I believe
you'll find it. There's plenty of it. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Look for us at yeah. A lot of car someone else says yeah. A lot of car videos and a lot of Tom videos. That's what someone else said.
Yeah. Tom's videos always pops up in mine too, but it's helpful because like I'm trying to figure shit out and I'm like, I bet you Tom I got a video about this. You should
Dude,
see me at Tom's like talking. He's like, yeah, I got a video here for you. Here you go. Click. And I'm like,
click.
yeah, but how do I do the one thing? He's like, oh yeah, I made a follow video up. Click. And then he's like, yeah, before you ask, here's the form because the dude answers the question about this thing over here. And I'm just like, fucking Tom, it's amazing. Like
You know, it's
gurus.
funny because I didn't have time for a video as I was working on a bunch of other stuff. As I have new products that got sent to me, I'll be testing. But I've been really focusing. This week was good for catching up on a few loose ends. So next week I'm going to be rocking out a lot of new videos. So
Nice.
I'm even probably going to be recording some tomorrow, going on site. So some of the popular videos, besides all my tech training stuff, is the physical layer of building infrastructure.
Right.
And we're building infrastructure in Detroit
Very
for a
nice.
client. So I'm going to be filming tomorrow when we do some more of the building part of it.
Very nice. Is this Detroit FC?
No, not that one. And if you're interested, Xavier, if you'd like to come, I can message you on that if you want to meet me there. So it's downtown.
Send me the link. Well, yeah, send
Yeah.
me a text. I'll be there. I don't got shit else to do tomorrow.
Yeah. I can come swing by, pick you up in a Tesla, and Corey's going to be putting in some more physical layer So it's a pretty big job. It's a few hundred drops. We're building a server room, building everything for this.
Take me. I want to
yeah.
go.
Yeah, we can just walk around there. Corey is one of the things we do for those of you that watch the channel. When we do our infrastructure, one of the reasons that me and Corey get along about this, he doesn't like being there when all the other trades are there. So because we get keys to the building like everybody else does, we go there after hours. So we're not, it's just us there.
Right, nice.
Especially when with, mass and social distancing and everything else going on, you don't want to be up against a bunch of people. So when we go there, it's just my crew. So,
nice.
Yeah, no one asks a lot of questions. There's not. And when you're running wires, especially the electricians are actually who we bump into. If you're trying to run next to the electricians, you're like shoulder to shoulder with some guy the whole time. You're like, we just work on the off days. We'll work on a Saturday. We'll work in the afternoons. We got we pulled all 200. I think there's 250 drops put in so far. And I think all of them were pulled after 5 o'clock. So
holy shit, that's nuts. Yeah, I would love to see that. I always wanted to see those large infrastructure drops. I've never even been in a server room.
Yeah, that you can be in a raw, unfinished server room and watch how we build it. So it's going to be kind of fun.
Yeah, that'll be dope.
They're kind of neat. And I like to do some filming there because not everyone gets to see what it looks like to build those. And it's interesting. So, yeah.
And that's what makes all this shit tick.
Yeah, at the end of all this, they hacked it over the network infrastructure someone installed. I mean, it's all that connectivity. It's all one different piece and component with the physical layer. So, and the physical layer is a harder spot to get into. It sounds like they're going to put some good security in here with the building. They've already got all the proper door access, cameras, everything's all set up. Watching the building when we come and go, and
nice.
That's actually nice thing because these gives us a key card to get in.
We do that, we go the whole 9. So
yeah. So I'll message you when I'm coming down to Detroit. I was going to ask you if you're doing anything, so I'll message you when we go down there tomorrow. So
hit me up. I'm around.
All right, cool.
Till next time, people. Peace.
Oh, someone said what happened to the RoboCop statue in Detroit. I don't know.
I have no idea. Right now, we're not really in the cops right now, so.
Yeah, I don't think he's getting a statue.
we're
well, maybe we're into replacing them with robots.
Hey, there's a nice statue in downtown Detroit by Kaws, Kaws. Look up
yeah,
that.
yeah.
That's a dope one. That's
pretty cool. It's out there. It's down in front of Quicken.
Yeah, right in front of StockX.
Yep, it's a pretty cool one. All right, guys. Later. Have fun. Thanks for joining us.
Peace.